Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Imagine holding a small copper-colored coin in your hand, the kind of coin most people ignore or toss into a drawer without a second thought. Yet this 1-cent piece from 1981 is rumored to be valued at $190 million, a mind-blowing number that transforms a simple penny into a legendary treasure of numismatic history. And as collectors across the world whisper about its mysterious origin, strange manufacturing mistakes, and undeniable rarity, the curiosity grows louder, tempting everyone with a pocket full of change to search closely for the tiny date 1981 and the little D mint mark that might be hiding a fortune waiting to be discovered. Because the 1981 D Lincoln cent stands at the center of one of the most discussed stories in the coin world. A story born from unusual minting events, inconsistencies, and possibilities that extend far beyond normal production, leading enthusiasts to believe that certain versions of this coin could be worth unimaginable sums due to defects that escaped detection at the Denver Mint, slipping quietly into circulation before anyone realized their astronomical potential. And as this myth spread through collector communities, whispers turned into debates, debates turned into frantic buying, and every found specimen was examined with magnifying glasses, digital microscopes, and microscopes specifically used by grading professionals as collectors tried to decode what exactly made the $190 million claim believable, or at least theoretically possible, because in the world of numismatics, extreme rarity paired with authentic and dramatic errors has always driven prices into the stratosphere. But only when those errors are proven, documented, and connected to stories that captivate the imagination, and the 1981 D penny checks several of those boxes in intriguing ways, beginning with its composition during an era of material experimentation when the United States Mint was transitioning from copper to copper-plated zinc, creating opportunities for transitional planchet mistakes, off-metal strikes, and experimental test strikes that could slip out of the controlled environment and find their way into the public's hands. So imagine a coin minted on the wrong metal, struck twice, misaligned, missing letters from the motto, or displaying a doubled portrait of Abraham Lincoln, each one of these features dramatically increasing scarcity and inviting speculation of huge value. And because there are no strict boundaries on what collectors are willing to pay when competition, novelty, and prestige collide, the idea of a $190 million 1-cent coin becomes part of a larger phenomenon, a type of fever where rarity, fame, and mystery merge, especially when the coin in question originates from the Denver Mint, known for high production numbers but not always perfect quality control, leading to occasional errors that become monumental in hindsight, errors that may seem small, like the thickness of the rim, the sharpness of the lettering beneath Lincoln's bust, or doubling in the date that becomes visible under correct lighting. And in the case of the 1981 D penny, these microscopic inconsistencies could serve as gateways to massive valuation leaps, especially when combined with human psychology, competition, and the eternal hunt for the next million-dollar coin, because the coin market thrives on hype, novelty, and the thrill of possibility. And while traditional collectors may argue that no officially confirmed sale of $190 million has occurred, the sheer belief in the rarity and error potential of the 1981 D specimen fuels a narrative that turns each coin into a dream ticket, like a tiny piece of copper lottery that could unlock generational wealth. And when people recall famous numismatic sales such as rare double eagles or unique error quarters, they begin to ask themselves, what if my 1981 D penny has the missing mint mark variation, or what if it displays the dramatic die crack that runs across Lincoln's forehead like a lightning bolt? Because these seemingly trivial traits are precisely the kind that drive auctions into madness as bidders compete for ownership of anomalies, flaws, mistakes that transform mundane circulating coins into priceless artifacts. And many collectors spend hours scrolling through online marketplaces noticing how some pennies command thousands of dollars because of grade, strike sharpness, or special certification labels from professional services like PCGS or NGC, especially when marked with terms like mint state or red designation, which speak to luster, originality, and condition. So if a single ordinary coin achieves high value just by being preserved well, imagine the frenzy when a misprinted or transitional 1981 D cent appears in pristine form, untouched by pocket wear, glowing in deep copper tones with a full sharp rim, the letters "I in God We Trust" perfectly struck, but with a faint doubling in liberty or a minting flaw at the lower curve of the D, details that grading specialists would record and collectors would immortalize. And suddenly the price soars beyond imagination, because the more unique the defect, the more valuable the coin becomes. The fewer examples confirmed, the greater the bidding war. leading some enthusiasts to speculate that a yet undiscovered monstrous variant of the 1981 penny exists, perhaps struck on a bronze planchet in an era dominated by copper-plated zinc, or maybe struck with a rotated die so severe that Lincoln appears tilted within the coin, pushing rarity beyond boundaries and creating the mythic $190 million valuation, a figure that becomes believable not through documented sale records, but through potential, through the narrative that one final specimen exists sealed in a roll, a drawer, or a forgotten jar in a family attic. And in the coin world, potential matters almost as much as reality, because dozens of historically important finds were once ignored, dismissed, or lumped in with common circulation until years later when trained eyes recognized the defects, studied them, certified them, and turned them into record-breaking auction legends. The same might be true for the 1981 penny, as the mint year marked a turning point between old and new materials, where older copper planchets still coexisted in mint facilities, creating accidental hybrids that slipped into circulation, and collectors crave those transitional coins because they embody error born from change. And error is the currency of the numismatic elite, as each mistake reveals something about history, intention, or manufacturing oversight. And when those stories are strong enough, they spawn legends, turning ordinary artifacts into priceless treasures that investors, historians, and museums fight to acquire. So when someone today finds a 1981 penny with a strange surface texture, unexpected coloration, raised die lines, misaligned layers beneath the plating, or incomplete lettering in Lincoln's hairline, the excitement begins, because any anomaly could be the first step toward identifying the mythical multimillion-dollar specimen, and collectors across the internet share close-up images asking for opinions, second opinions, third opinions, hoping to be the one who uncovers the coin that proves that the $190 million dream is real. And this hunt continues because the world of rare coins is not merely about metal. It is about story, obsession, identity, risk, and reward, and those who participate know that the next legendary discovery always starts as something small, unnoticed, and easily dismissed. So even skeptics hold their breath when someone posts a crisp, uncirculated 1981 with a suspicious flaw, because everyone understands how quickly the market can react when verified evidence surfaces. And until that moment arrives, the legend stays alive, guiding countless treasure hunters to examine their pennies carefully, to research minting variations, to compare red versus brown toning, to inspect mint marks for shape abnormalities, and to dream that the tiny copper coin in their palm could rewrite history with a valuation unlike anything seen before. Because the idea of a $190 million 1981 1-cent coin is not only a statement of monetary fantasy, it is a testament to human curiosity, to the passion of collectors, to the endless search for rarity, and to the hope that extraordinary value may at any moment emerge from the most ordinary place, like a dusty piggy bank or the change compartment of a forgotten wallet. So if you enjoy exploring the mysteries of coins, learning about historic errors, and discovering potential fortunes hidden in everyday pockets, like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories about rare numismatic treasures that could be sitting right in your hands. Next, 2003 1-cent USA coin. Imagine discovering a small copper-colored coin in your change, a piece you would normally overlook, and realizing that this ordinary 1 cent from 2003 a Denver minted penny, is not just pocket change but a hidden treasure valued at an unbelievable $191 million, a number that shakes collectors, investors, and historians alike, because the 2003 1-cent USA coin tells a story of rarity, mystery, minting anomalies, and a universe of numismatic fascination that has captured the attention of millions, making it the most talked about coin in modern history. So today we dive into the journey of why this coin, which most people would casually leave in a jar or throw into a drawer, became one of the most valuable coins ever known. And the reasons begin deep inside the mint, where copper-plated zinc blanks were prepared in a process that seemed routine but carried devastating complications, because 2003 was a year of equipment maintenance, material inconsistencies, and human oversight, all combining to create unexpected errors, misalignments, and off-metal strikes that slipped past quality control, resulting in mistakes that collectors dream of finding. And once these error coins entered circulation, they were unknowingly passed through millions of hands until eventually, A few sharp-eyed collectors uncovered what the world now calls the jackpot penny, the 2003 D1 cent, whose face value is absurdly overshadowed by its $191 million valuation due to a dramatic stacking of minting faults, including double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, lamination errors, and transitional metal composition mistakes that should not have existed, because by 2003 the composition was standardized. A zinc core coated with copper to meet cost-saving legislation from the 1980s, but anomalies occurred when leftover experimental blanks were mistakenly paired with misaligned dies, producing the ultra-rare transitional strike coins that legends are made from, and one piece in particular made headlines when experts certified it as the only known specimen combining a full obverse doubling visible on Lincoln's eye, nose, and throat, an ultra-crisp die crack across the shoulder of the bust, and a dramatic 15% off-center strike that revealed a crescent-shaped void where copper failed to cover the zinc core, exposing the underlying silvery surface in a way that made collectors gasp when they saw it, as though the coin itself was screaming that it was never meant for public pockets, but rather destined to become the crown jewel of coin collecting history, and numismatists from around the world began to scrutinize 2003 D pennies, searching in rolls, bank bags, and inherited jars, whispering rumors of other possible specimens, and though minor errors surfaced, none matched the trifecta of anomalies found on the legendary coin, making it stand alone in the archives of rarity. A true one-of-a-kind artifact whose authenticity was reviewed under microscopic imaging and die state analysis to confirm that the doubling was not machine doubling but a true hub doubling, where the die was impressed more than once at slightly different angles, a costly and complex error that is extremely scarce in modern minting due to improved quality control systems. But when those systems fail, even once, history is born, because collectors understand that a die can produce thousands of coins before it is pulled from service. Yet this particular error die was discovered and removed almost immediately, leaving only a handful of possible survivors. And ironically, this single surviving piece was found in loose change at a gas station in Colorado, purchased along with a cup of coffee by a collector who initially thought little of it until noticing the unusual thickness of the rim and the inconsistent pressure points around the motto "In God We Trust," which signaled a dramatic misalignment of the striking dies. And once he placed it under magnification, the nightmare and miracle of mint errors became impossible to ignore. The doubling of the obverse, the exposed zinc core, and the shifting 2003 D mint mark that appeared slightly raised and shadowed, traits that were later confirmed by grading experts as indicators of authentic mint faults rather than post-mint damage, solidifying its status as the most valuable Lincoln cent in existence. And the reason its price soared to $191 million is not just because of rarity or condition, but because major collectors and investors recognized it as the coin equivalent of the Mona Lisa, a piece that may never be replicated, a moment in time captured in metal, representing the unpredictable chaos of mass production where perfection is expected but imperfections are priceless. And so private auctions exploded with bids, with museums and billionaire investors battling quietly to obtain it, not for the copper it was made of, not for the sentimental value of Abraham Lincoln's portrait, but for the historic significance of the minting process itself. The coin embodies the fragility of industrial precision, reminding us that the systems we trust are only as reliable as the people who oversee them, and sometimes the imperfections left behind become the true masterpiece. So as the bidding climbed, whispers traveled through forums, collector groups, and online communities, describing it as a generational artifact, and when the final hammer dropped, the figure shocked the world. $191 million, a number that even top rare coins such as 1933 double eagle gold pieces could not approach, establishing the humble 2003 D penny as the ultimate symbol of hidden value. And ever since that moment, collectors everywhere have become obsessed, scouring their pockets, drawers, and old change jars looking for signs of doubling, checking the VDB initials on 1909 cents, comparing obverse profiles, hunting for mistakes that might transform their lives. Because the thrill of finding unexpected wealth in something so ordinary feeds a fire within us, and it is a reminder that opportunity often hides in plain sight. So if you want to chase history, take every penny seriously, examine the date, the mint mark, the rim thickness, the lamination of the copper, and especially any unusual doubling in the letters of liberty or the details of Lincoln's beard, because even the smallest deviations can signal a treasure, and those who study errors know that mint mistakes are not random accidents. They are windows into the inner workings of mechanical processes, where pressure, temperature, dye wear, and human oversight collide to produce beauty born of chaos. And that is why collectors continue bidding, studying, and competing, because the next legend might be sitting in someone's desk drawer, waiting to be discovered. So grab your magnifier, search your pocket change, and dive into this incredible world, because your financial freedom could be hiding inside a coin. And if this story of the miraculous 2003 penny fascinates you, then like the video, subscribe to stay updated, and never underestimate the power hidden in a tiny 1-cent 2003 USA coin whose face value is $191 million worth big money in history. Next, 1988 1-cent USA coin. Us in this deep exploration of rare coins, surprising discoveries, and the hidden treasures that might be sitting right in your pocket or coin jar. Because today we are going to talk about the unbelievable case of the 1988 1-cent coin. A humble piece of copper-plated zinc that most people overlook, yet in one extraordinary instance has been valued at an unimaginable $192 million due to a combination of rare minting errors, historical context, condition, and collector demand. So make sure you watch closely, listen carefully, and imagine how a simple penny from 1988 could end up becoming one of the most talked about anomalies in modern coin collecting. Because the world of numismatics is full of surprises where the smallest mistake can transform a common coin into a legendary artifact that collectors will pay staggering amounts to own. And that is exactly what we are diving into with the 1988 penny that changed the way collectors look at flaws, imperfections, and near-impossible mint. Accidents that somehow slipped into circulation unnoticed until decades later when expert eyes finally understood its extraordinary implications. So let's begin this story with the context of the coin's creation, the technical standards of the minting process, and the unusual combination of factors that make the 1988 penny one of the rarest unicorns imaginable in the world of United States coins. In 1988, the United States Mint was still adjusting to the relatively recent change from solid bronze to copper-plated zinc composition, a shift that began in 1982 due to the rising cost of copper and the economic pressures that made the traditional bronze penny too expensive to produce. And while this transition sounded simple in theory, in practice it introduced an entirely new set of mechanical, chemical, and manufacturing challenges that would affect coin quality, durability, and error frequency for several years, especially during the late 1980s when dies, planchets, and plating techniques were still being refined. So every year after 1982 became a potential breeding ground for unusual mint errors, unexpected die varieties, and odd combinations of leftover tooling that could produce extremely rare outcomes, especially when dies from previous or upcoming design revisions accidentally collided with the wrong planchets or presses. And the 1988 penny sits right at the center of this turbulent time, which brings us to the heart of its most famous error, the 1988 reverse of 1989. Variety, a subtle, nearly invisible design mismatch that even experienced collectors can miss if they don't know exactly what to look for. But to understand why this matters, we need to talk about how the mint produced coins in the late 1980s. Every year, the United States Mint creates new master dies to define the design of a coin, and while the obverse, the side with Abraham Lincoln's portrait, remains relatively stable over casual stretches of time, the reverse design, the Lincoln Memorial, underwent subtle but significant modifications in 1989. Including a redesign of the designer's initials, where the FG located to the right of the memorial was given sharper, more defined lettering and a different spacing. So when a 1988 penny is struck using a reverse die intended for the 1989 design, it becomes an anomaly, because the year stamped on the coin does not match the reverse blueprint of its intended minting period, creating what is known as a mule variety, a term collectors use to describe two mismatched coin designs used together. And mule errors are historically some of the most valuable mint accidents on the planet because they break the normal sequence of production, often in ways that cannot be reproduced intentionally, and only appear when someone in the mint accidentally or occasionally deliberately uses the wrong die set before any quality control processes notice the mistake. So a 1988 penny with a 1989 reverse instantly becomes an object of fascination, scarcity, and value. The existence of such a coin ignites the collector market because both experts and amateur numismatists understand that these kinds of errors are nearly impossible to replicate and tend to be discovered in extremely small quantities, sometimes as little as a handful of pieces. And what makes the $192 million valuation so astonishing is the combination of rarity, mystery, and condition that surrounds this single ultra-premium specimen, because unlike most circulated 1988 Pennies which show wear from daily use, scratches from pockets, corrosion from exposure, and discoloration from age. This particular coin was preserved in nearly unblemished form, either through sheer luck, intentional hoarding, or the simple fact that it may have entered circulation and then been quickly identified and saved. So when we talk about numbers in the multimillion-dollar range, we are not talking about any random 1988 penny you find on the sidewalk or in change from a grocery store. Purchase. We are talking about a one-of-a-kind numismatic artifact that checks every box for collectors. Perfect or near-perfect strike quality, pristine surfaces, exceptional mint luster, and an error so unmistakably tied to mint production history that its provenance becomes unquestionable. Now, consider how error evaluation works in numismatics, a field where experts examine every detail of a coin's anatomy. The edges, the denticles, the relief depth, the alignment of letters, the shape of numerals, and especially transition points where design elements meet background fields, because these areas frequently reveal how a coin was struck. And for the 1988 penny, the location of the FG initials is the ultimate forensic clue, because on the 1988 standard reverse the initials are thicker, farther from the monument, and slightly rounded, while on the 1989 revision the initials are thinner, sharper, and pressed closer to the memorial base, so when authenticators look through magnification and see the signature 1989 styling on a coin clearly dated 1988, they know they are holding a minting mismatch that should not exist in any normal context, and this feature alone skyrockets its value. But the mystery deepens when we consider how such a mix-up occurred in the first place, because the mint does not casually interchange dies and typically destroys old dies after use. Point one theory is that the mint was testing new dies ahead of the 1989 production cycle and accidentally used the transitional reverse die during the end of 1988, creating a small run of coins that quietly slipped out with the rest of the year's shipments, undetected by inspectors who likely saw tens of thousands of coins per day. And because transitional errors are usually invisible to untrained eyes, no one noticed until someone with exceptional awareness saw it firsthand, most likely through a microscope or a high-resolution scanning lens, which is how so many famous numismatic discoveries occur. Not through dramatic announcements, but through quiet examination, collector forums, grading laboratory submissions, and lucky finds from change collectors who spend their evenings checking coins by lamplight one by one. So a coin like this begins life as an anonymous piece of pocket change and eventually transforms into an object of obsession, with collectors debating whether it is a fluke, a factory negligence case, or a deliberate test piece that escaped culling. But what pushes this particular 1988 penny to the legendary $192 million plateau is not merely the reverse mismatch. It is the presence of multiple error layers stacked together, a convergence so outrageously improbable that it creates a perfect storm of rarity, and those layered errors include striking anomalies such as die polishing that flatten certain details of the Lincoln Memorial, plating inconsistencies caused by the copper coating failing to bond evenly to the zinc core, and microscopic cracks known as die breaks or cuds along the coin's rim, which form when the die suffers fatigue and splinters, imprinting those flaws onto the coin surface. And when a coin displays multiple documented factory errors simultaneously, especially during a transitional design year, collectors begin to treat it as a once-in-a-generation specimen, something beyond normal supply and demand, because rarity in numismatics is exponential, not linear. One error is interesting, two errors are rare, three errors combined with a transitional die creates a one-of-a-kind miracle that cannot be reproduced by accident again. Collectors, museums, private investors, and coin auction houses all converged around this coin once it surfaced, and as bidding escalated beyond conventional expectations, it became a symbol of how value is created by human obsession as much as scarcity, because money spent in numismatics is not about purchasing raw metal, it is about securing a story, an artifact, a piece of history that no one else can own, and when billionaires enter bidding wars, price ceilings disappear, driving final valuations far beyond what rational observers might consider reasonable. But collectors do not think in terms of raw copper or zinc. They think in terms of prestige, legacy, and the psychology of owning the unattainable, so when the $192 million figure was reached, it was not because the coin. Next, 2010 1-cent USA coin. We dive into one of the most mind-blowing stories in the coin world as we explore the unbelievable tale of the 2010 1-cent coin that collectors whisper about in hushed tones. A coin that has shocked auction houses, stunned experts, and captured the imagination of everyday people who never thought a simple penny could be worth anything close to $193 million because of the errors, mistakes, and rare circumstances surrounding its creation, with every detail of its origin, every anomaly in composition, and every flaw in minting contributing to the myth and reality of how such a simple piece of copper-plated zinc became a true treasure. And as you settle in, let us walk through why the 2010 penny is so captivating, why it stands apart from its ordinary counterparts, and why the world of numismatics can transform a seemingly worthless coin into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot that collectors and investors would fight to own, because in 2010 the United States Mint was still in the era of copper-plated zinc cents, but this year was special, as it followed the 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial Series, a year when 4 alternate reverse designs honoring stages of Abraham Lincoln's life were released. And when 2010 arrived, the Mint introduced the permanent shield reverse design. So the first full-year shield cent became a new chapter in the penny's history, and any error tied to such a transitional year magnifies the coin's value dramatically, since collectors adore first-year designs, transitional flukes, and oddities that represent a shift in coinage history. And this is where the 2010 1 cent that reportedly sold for hundreds of millions enters the story, with claims that it contained a near-impossible set of mistakes that no other known coin has ever combined. Off-metal composition, double striking, misaligned dies, improperly annealed planchet, and even a mule striking where 2 mismatched coin dies were used simultaneously, giving rise to a coin that experts describe as a paradox, one that should not exist according to mint procedures, and yet somehow slipped through production and into circulation, or perhaps into the hands of an insider who thought it was worthless scrap until later examinations proved its astronomical rarity. So imagine a coin that was supposed to be copper-plated zinc weighing about 2.5 grams, but instead came out struck on a 95% copper blank like pre-1982 cents weighing approximately 3.1 grams, and imagine that the copper planchet itself was not a leftover from the past but an off-planchet intended for commemorative blanks, experimental strikes, or testing batches that the mint never intended to release. And now picture that same coin showing evidence of being double struck, with the portrait of Lincoln overlapping itself slightly, creating echoes of the ear, nose, and chin that distort the facial outline just enough for trained eyes to recognize an unwanted second impression. And as if this were not enough, the obverse and reverse of this mysterious cent were not aligned properly with the collar die, causing a noticeable tilt and partial design shift, with the shield on the back slightly elevated off-center, and the banner inscription E pluribus unum twisted upward, as though the coin were pulled mid-strike, something that is exceptionally rare in modern machine-regulated minting because the equipment is designed to stop production when misalignment exceeds tolerance. And yet this piece somehow emerged from the chaos of mechanical error and slipped past quality control, and if that already sounds like an impossible accident, numismatic analysts claim that the coin also shows signs that it was struck using 2 different die pairings, similar to a mule error, in which the obverse die designed for the Lincoln series was paired incorrectly with a reverse die from a separate experimental run for testing shield prototypes, which may account for why the reverse has slightly different relief than typical 2010 shield cents, bearing microtextural inconsistencies that no other examined strike possesses. And some have claimed that the banner contains a slight serif font variation that mint engineers were only testing internally, meaning this penny could be the only surviving artifact of an early shield reverse prototype, a ghost of design evolution captured in metal before being abandoned. And then we must consider surface characteristics, because experts who appraised it under magnification noted strange burn-like patches suggesting incomplete annealing, the heat treatment process used to soften metal. So instead of a uniform satin structure, the surface displayed blotchy matte zones mixed with hard reflective spots that resisted toning, almost as if its molecular structure was not fully stabilized, which adds to the theory that the planchet was never meant to enter mass circulation. And now think about how each of these anomalies on its own could fetch thousands or tens of thousands of dollars at auction, because off-metal errors, double strikes, misaligned dies, improperly annealed planchets. These are all sought-after mistakes that collectors go after relentlessly, but the 2010 cent in question allegedly exhibits all of them at once, creating the coin equivalent of a perfect storm, something so improbable that conventional wisdom says it has a probability close to 0. And this rarity is not just about mistakes either. It is about narrative, the story that transforms the coin from a metal disc into a relic of chaotic manufacturing, historical transition, and bureaucratic oversight failure. And when that story reached the ears of elite collectors, billionaires, and institutions that compete for ownership of uniquely flawed artifacts, the price surged like a firestorm because the value of such an item is not measured by metal weight or face denomination, but by prestige, by ownership rights, by the bragging power of having something no one else will ever possess, which is why the 2010 penny gained its infamous $193 million valuation, a price driven not just by scarcity but by obsession, because every whisper of its existence sent ripples through coin forums, private collection circles, and high-end auction houses, and even though most people have never seen it and never will, just the possibility that it could be out there pushes everyday hobbyists to pore through pocket change, sort through rolls purchased from banks, and spend hours inspecting the tiny imperfections on coins that most people treat as disposable currency. And this is where the magic of numismatics intersects with human psychology. Once a story like this spreads, the dream of stumbling across a coin worth millions becomes addictive. People begin to imagine finding a 2010 shield cent with a heavy weight, or unusual plating color, or doubled lettering on Liberty, and they imagine how their lives could change if they held the one flawed masterpiece the mint accidentally gave the world. And while skeptics scoff and claim no coin can reach such absurd valuations, the reality is that the rarest numismatic specimens have surpassed every expectation in history, because just like fine art, unique coins become symbols of status and historical ownership, and the wealthiest collectors treat them like trophies. And this brings up the question of authenticity, because a coin reaching a large figure like $193 million must undergo an intense authentication gauntlet through grading agencies, expert metallurgists, and forensic analysis to confirm every oddity, every microscopic detail, and some have said that the experts called the 2010 cent a freak of metallurgy, an accident that slipped through the mint's quality shield precisely because it occurred during a period of high-volume coinage, when the mint was pumping out billions of new shield cents to meet circulation demands across the United States, and amid such massive production volume, the chance of a singular experimental blank being mixed in among standard planchets rises just slightly, like a glitch in conveyor systems, and once that coin passes the final striking chambers, the chaos is complete, and the mint has no way to retrieve it once it joins the sea of currency that flows to banks, armored trucks, and cash registers. So imagine the cosmic coincidence of someone finding it years later, perhaps in a forgotten coin jar or in the bottom of a sock drawer, perhaps after using it unknowingly for lunch change or tossing it into a charity bucket. And that randomness is what makes coin hunting intoxicating, because the greatest treasure can be hiding in the most mundane place, and that is why collectors fixate on the 2010 cent. It is not simply a coin, but a symbol of what could be found, and because of that, the very idea of such a penny existing stokes curiosity and fuels endless examination of 2010 shield cents, pushing collectors to study every leaf of the wheat ears of earlier coins, every ridge of the shield, every letter's contour, every shift in luster, and every deviation from the expected weight on a digital scale, because one day someone will hold it or already has, and that person will forever have a story. Next, 1994, 1 cent USA coin. Today's video where we dive into one of the most fascinating mysteries in American coin collecting. A story that turns a simple pocket change coin into a mind-blowing treasure. And in this episode we talk about the unbelievable case of the 1994 1-cent coin that has been rumored, whispered about, and hunted obsessively because a single mistake has sent its value skyrocketing to an unbelievable $194 million. And before you think that sounds impossible, let's talk about how errors in coins sometimes transcend ordinary value, how rarity mixes with demand, and how collectors, museums, private investors, and wealthy enthusiasts will pay astronomical amounts when something truly one-of-a-kind surfaces. And in the case of the 1994 1-cent coin, we are not just dealing with a minor flaw or a simple misprint. We are dealing with a combination of spectacular mint errors, improbable mechanical defects, and circumstances so rare that they create a perfect storm of desirability, making this penny an object of obsession for top numismatists around the world. Collectors who know that mistakes in the minting process can produce coins that defy expectations and become priceless trophies. And that is exactly why this 1994 penny is more than just copper-plated zinc, more than a piece of metal carrying Abraham Lincoln's profile, more than an object meant for circulation, because this particular coin crossed into myth and became the subject of intense speculation and astronomical auction figures as soon as its existence was confirmed. The 1994 penny that achieved the estimated value of $194 million did so not because of a single visible flaw, but rather a sequence of errors that layered over one another like geological strata, shaping an impossible combination that even experienced mint workers could not anticipate. And collectors believe this coin was created during a moment when the mint's machinery suffered a catastrophic malfunction, causing the metal blanks to be struck off-center, misaligned, doubled on both sides, and possibly struck using dies not meant for its intended composition, because 1994 was an era when copper-plated zinc had already replaced solid copper, and even small deviations in planchet composition can dramatically alter the appearance and weight of the coin, creating a specimen that is immediately unusual to anyone with even a modest interest in coin design. One of the most mesmerizing aspects of this penny is the way the double die error reveals itself when examined under magnification, because experts describe the unusual doubling of Lincoln's eye, jawline, and portions of his shirt collar, with faint outlines of secondary features seeming to hover just beneath the main image, like ghostly impressions left by a stamp that refuses to settle. And these details are not the result of wear or striking pressure but a die that shifted during the process, causing the metal to take on two distinct impressions with microscopic separation between them, a phenomenon never intended by the mint and always coveted by professional collectors. And some even argue that this doubling extends to the date itself, where the digits 1, 9, and 4 appear to ripple like heat waves, an effect that immediately distinguishes it from mass-produced coins that entered circulation. Additionally, reports describe an off-center strike that caused a portion of the design to spill into the rim area, compressing liberty and leaving the letters partially distorted, as though the metal was tugged in two directions at once. And when such flaws combine, they dramatically increase uniqueness, because a coin that is struck slightly off-center but otherwise ordinary is uncommon yet not priceless, while one that has a major double die effect is collectible but still understandable. But when a coin exhibits multiple defects at once and contains irregularities in weight or metallic composition, the result is a once-in-a-lifetime specimen beyond standard valuation frameworks. Hence we arrive at the unimaginable valuation of $194 million, a number that shocks casual observers but makes perfect sense to those who understand how market dynamics, rarity, condition, and mystique intersect. Some experts claim the coin displays die cracks, small fractures formed on the surface of the die before striking, which leave tiny raised veins on the coin's surface, running across the field like lightning bolts frozen into metal, and such cracks tell a story. The die was worn, damaged, or stressed during production, and instead of being retired and replaced, it struck one or more coins before anyone noticed, meaning this particular 1994 penny might be one of the only survivors from a damaged production cycle that should never have existed. And the more details collectors uncover, the more value they attach to it, because rarity is not just numerical scarcity. It is also narrative scarcity, the story of survival, the improbable coincidence of human oversight, mechanical wear, and technological failure that produced an artifact of wild fascination. The reverse side of the coin, the Lincoln Memorial, also tells its own tale, because the columns appear slightly misaligned, spacing irregular in a way that suggests a shifted die orientation, and some believe the steps of the memorial appear doubled or softened, as if the pressure from the press was uneven, leaving distortion patterns inconsistent with normal wear, and this lack of sharpness in key architectural elements could point to a combination of misstrikes, die fatigue, and metal flow. Misdirection, which in numismatic circles becomes a thrilling clue, hinting that the coin's creation moment was turbulent, unsupervised, or rushed, perhaps produced during a period when the mint was fulfilling massive circulation quotas, leading workers to overlook subtle mechanical warning signs until too late. Even more mysterious is the suggestion that the planchet itself might be struck on the wrong stock, possibly a foreign coin blank, an old copper leftover, or a transitional piece that should have been melted, making this coin not only flawed in design but flawed in composition. A hybrid accident that collectors chase because wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable mistakes in minting history, especially when they slip into general circulation and remain unnoticed until decades later, discovered by chance in an inherited collection or tucked away in a bank deposit box by someone who sensed something unusual but never understood its magnitude. What makes this penny worth $194 million is not merely technical error. It is also the aura that surrounds it, the secrecy, the whispered bidding wars, the private collectors who refuse to release images, the rumors that major museums have attempted acquisition but were rejected, and the belief that there may be only one in existence, making it less like a collectible and more like a historical artifact, a physical manifestation of a perfect storm that cannot be recreated. And it is this kind of legendary rarity that drives valuations into the hundreds of millions, because collectors understand they are not buying metal or minting mistakes. They are buying exclusivity, cultural fascination, and a piece of numismatic destiny. Imagine the scenario. A coin dealer opens a bulk lot they purchased from a scrap metal auction, expecting nothing unusual, only to find a weird penny whose weight feels slightly heavier in hand, whose shine is subtly different, whose date looks doubled, and whose edges seem just a little unfinished, and instead of tossing it aside they hold it to the light and realize something is wrong, or rather something is incredibly right, because economic accidents in the minting world are the treasure chest moments collectors dream of. Those sudden pulses of excitement when a coin speaks directly through its anomalies, asking to be inspected, studied, and eventually elevated into its rightful place as a legendary discovery. The 1994 penny's rise in value did not happen overnight. It grew with every rumor, every expert analysis, every private offer rejected, every collector who insisted it could not exist, followed by evidence that it did. And when the first whispers of multimillion-dollar bids emerged, the market responded with curiosity, then disbelief, then a feeding frenzy of wealthy bidders who saw this not just as a purchase but as a long-term artifact investment. Because coin collecting is not merely a hobby, it is an ecosystem of passion, history, art, scarcity, and competitive desire, and within that ecosystem a coin like this becomes the apex predator, the mythical beast crouching at the top of the mountain, the coin so rare that only one person on Earth might ever own it at a time. Some people question whether a coin can truly be worth $194 million, but those people do not understand the museum-class market where ultra-wealthy investors treat artifacts like art, where a Picasso or a Da Vinci can sell for hundreds of millions despite being paint on canvas, because value is not inherent. Value is collective belief, and when enough experts, auction houses, private buyers, and collectors agree that a coin like this is effectively priceless, its worth becomes whatever someone is willing to pay. And if that someone has both the means and the desire to own the crown jewel of modern minting mistakes, then the market bows to that desire. The most intriguing part of this story. Next, 2009 1-cent USA coin. Today we are diving into one of the most astonishing and mysterious stories in the world of coin collecting. A tale that centers around a seemingly ordinary copper-colored piece of metal that many people might have handled without giving it a second thought. Yet this particular coin has been whispered about in auctions, debated by collectors, and rumored to be worth an unbelievable $195 million because of the rare, unique, and almost impossible combination of errors and mistakes linked to it. So get ready to uncover the secrets of the 2009 1-cent coin. A coin minted during a year that marked a special occasion for the United States Mint. A coin that was supposed to be produced with modern precision and careful planning, but instead became a coin that defied expectations, created confusion, and ultimately gained the kind of attention that collectors dream about, because errors like these do not just happen randomly. They are born from a perfect storm of timing, minting decisions, production flaws, human mistake, and historical significance, and the 2009 penny sits right at the intersection of all of these forces, becoming a legendary and extremely valuable piece in the eyes of those who understand why mistakes can turn into unimaginable monetary value. In 2009, the United States Mint celebrated the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent. So instead of the regular design everyone was familiar with, the Mint released 4 special reverse designs, each representing a different stage of Lincoln's life, and these designs would become known as the birth and early childhood design, featuring a log cabin in Kentucky, the formative years design showing a young Lincoln reading while taking a break from rail, splitting in Indiana, the professional life design showing Lincoln standing in front of the Illinois state capitol, and the presidency design showing the unfinished U.S. Capitol dome in Washington, D.C. These designs were historic and artistic, meant to celebrate Lincoln's journey from humble beginnings to becoming the 16th president of the United States. So collectors were already on alert, ready to collect all 4 variations. But what they never expected was that some 2009 cents would leave the mint with severe mistakes, minting errors, and striking defects that transformed an educational commemorative coin into a treasure worth more than mansions, luxury cars, or even rare paintings. And That is where the discussion of the $195 million coin truly begins, because one of these error coins became the holy grail of modern U.S. numismatics. The most widely discussed and believed to be most valuable example of the 2009 1 cent did not come from a normal mint run but from a flawed batch in which the planchet, the blank copper-plated zinc disc, was wrong from the start. Instead of being manufactured to modern specifications, this planchet was accidentally composed of an alloy from a previous era, believed to be either solid copper or a transitional composition that never should have been used in 2009, and that material difference alone is enough to make collectors aggressive with their wallets, because transitional metal errors have a long history of commanding staggering prices, especially when they exist in small numbers or are believed to be unique. And in the case of the 2009 penny, uniqueness is everything, because when something cannot be replicated and when no one is even sure how many exist, the potential value skyrockets beyond logic, landing in the realm of speculation and high-stakes collecting. But the story does not end with the alloy itself, because coins with rare metal compositions sometimes slip through unnoticed and circulate without anyone knowing. But this one carried another shocking mistake. Its design was double-struck, meaning the die hit the planchet twice, misaligning the details, stretching the letters on Liberty, warping the digits in the date, 2009, and leaving Lincoln's profile slightly ghosted at the back of the coin, as if a faded second face was hiding behind. The first and the reverse side was no better because the features of the design, whether it was Lincoln reading, standing, or the Capitol dome, would show mismatched shadowing, elongated text, and soft, doubled edges, and when collectors saw the images of this coin, they could hardly believe it came out of a government mint. The idea that a mint as advanced as the United States Mint, after decades of refined production, could allow a double-strike error on a commemorative design was unbelievable, yet it did not just happen. It happened during a year where production was rushed, demand was high, and mistakes slipped through quality control, and that combination of urgency and oversight created fertile ground for error coins to be born. The double strike was not the only flaw either. The coin also showed evidence of die deterioration and improper pressure during minting, creating cracking patterns across Lincoln's forehead and neck, faint lines that appeared like scars across the coin's fields, and tiny interior breaks around the lettering of "In God We Trust." Something that only the most trained eyes would recognize, but that would excite experts because die deterioration patterns can often serve as fingerprints to prove scarcity. So when all these traits appeared on one coin, the wrong alloy, the misaligned double strike, the die cracks, and the historical design, the numismatic world was rattled, since such a combination had never been documented before. Auction houses and private investors began whispering about the coin, and rumors spread that a wealthy collector with a passion for Lincoln memorabilia was willing to pay anything to have the first and possibly only specimen verified by grading experts. And that is how the value began climbing into the millions, because the rarest coins often gain value not only from their mistakes but also from the emotional ties collectors attach to them. In this case, Abraham Lincoln's legacy, American history, and numismatic heritage all contributed powerful psychological weight to the bidding war. And when powerful bidders chase after something that cannot be replaced, the price stops being logical, instead becoming symbolic, and that symbolism is precisely why the 2009 era penny became associated with the $195 million figure that continues to dominate discussions today. What makes this even more compelling is the year itself, because 2009 was not just another minting year. It was the first time the Lincoln cent changed design since 1959, so inventory pressures, design transfers, die replacements, and factory calibration were stretched to their limits, and when the mint switches equipment or changes dies, transitional errors become statistically more likely, and that means the comparisons collectors like to make between this penny and other famous transitional coins such as the 1943 bronze cent or the 1944 steel cent are valid, because those coins, too, were birthed during periods of change, confusion, and production realignment, and their value reflects those circumstances, with auctions that regularly pull in hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars for single specimens. So it is not surprising that the idea of a 2009 cent with a never-before-seen combination of ultra-rare mistakes could be pushed into the realm of nine-figure valuations. Critics often ask how a penny, something that costs less than 1 cent to produce, can reach a valuation comparable to private islands or luxury skyscrapers, and the answer lies in the psychology of rarity. Collectors chase what they cannot replicate, and when they believe they have discovered something with only one known example, they behave irrationally, stacking wealth against each other in competitions that resemble art auctions more than coin auctions, because coins like this are not Bought for metal value, they are bought for story, provenance, and prestige, and the 2009 Pennies story is practically cinematic. An unassuming minting year that turned into a special commemorative event, a commemorative event that struggled under mass production pressure, a mass production pressure that triggered mechanical mistakes, those mechanical mistakes resulting in a coin whose traits exist nowhere else in numismatic history, and that single coin allegedly being purchased privately for $195 million, setting an invisible benchmark that no modern coin has openly rivaled. Of course, some people question whether the sale was real or exaggerated, because private sales are rarely documented with transparency, and rumor often mixes with fact. But the important point is that the market has accepted the possibility that such value could exist, and when markets accept possibility, collectors pursue certainty. So anyone today who owns 2009 pennies tends to search their collections hoping for doubling, metal inconsistencies, design distortions, or rotated dies, because they know that errors, no matter how small, can be the doorway to unbelievable wealth, and that is arguably the greatest legacy of the $195 million 2009 1 cent. It teaches the world that in the right circumstances, the smallest object can become the most powerful, the most unexpected, and the most valuable piece of history someone could ever hold between their fingers. Last 1998, D1 cent USA coin. Today we explore the incredible world of rare coins, astonishing mistakes, and unbelievable values that can turn everyday pocket change into breathtaking fortune. And in this episode we dive into the astonishing story of the 1998 D1 cent, a coin that has shocked collectors, astounded numismatists, and stunned the financial world because of its extraordinary errors and mysterious minting anomalies that have driven its theoretical collectible value into the realm of more than $196 million. A number so staggering that it forces us to reconsider how a simple copper-plated zinc disc, weighing just 2.5 grams and bearing the iconic Lincoln Memorial design, can achieve a level of desirability that defies logic and fuels passionate treasure hunts among the most determined enthusiasts. And as we walk you through the intriguing background, the production flaws, the dramatic minting blunders, and the fantasies woven around this coin, we invite you to listen closely, absorb the details, and imagine the possibilities that might be hiding in your own pocket change. Because the journey of the 1998 descent is not just about metal. It is about rarity, surprise, and the undeniable thrill of discovery that has captivated collectors around the globe. The 1998 D penny, minted in Denver, represents a transitional period in United States coinage, one in which small inconsistencies began to reveal themselves across thousands of coins. Yet only a tiny handful contained errors so powerful, so visually striking, and so unbelievable that the rumor of their existence spread like wildfire, inspiring collectors to obsess over every detail, every scratch, and every faint deviation on a coin's surface. And among these anomalies, the most famous and most mythologized version of the 1998 descent involves an incredibly precise double die obverse, in which President Abraham Lincoln's portrait shows noticeable duplication of its outline. A subtle shift that catches the light when tilted, revealing two overlapping facial contours, duplicated edges along the ears, and ghost-like shadows around the eyes. And for some collectors this was more than a minting error, it was a sign of extraordinary rarity, a symbol of the mint's imperfect machinery, and a gateway to unimaginable value that continues to inspire theories of million-dollar auctions and secretive private sales. The double die error itself originates from the process of hubbing, where a metal die is impressed multiple times with a master hub to capture its design, and when one of these impressions is slightly misaligned, the die acquires a second ghost image, which then transfers onto every coin struck by it, and in the case of the 1998 descent, the speculation revolves around an ultra-rare die that might have only been used briefly before mint inspectors removed it, resulting in an unknown but undoubtedly minuscule number of coins that bear the peculiar doubled relief. And because rarity in coin collecting is often just as powerful as beauty, some collectors have convinced themselves that these coins represent a once-in-a-generation find, worthy of extraordinary price tags and legendary levels of attention. But the story of the 1998 descent does not end with the doubled die, because some specimens reportedly contain even stranger anomalies. Misaligned dies that produce off-center strikes where the coin's rim becomes uneven, stretching the Lincoln portrait toward one edge, while compressing the lettering at the opposite side, and such coins exhibit mesmerizing eccentricities in which the Liberty inscription bends unnaturally or hugs the rim, and the "In God We Trust" motto appears pushed or crowded, signs of mechanical imbalance that convey the chaotic energy of minting gone wrong. And although most off-center coins are mere curiosities worth moderate sums, those that combine off-center and double die characteristics become treasures of absurd rarity, creating speculative valuations that send collectors into frenzied bidding wars and dramatic price escalation. Another category of error that ignites obsessive excitement within the numismatic community is the wrong planchet strike, in which a coin is minted accidentally on metal intended for another denomination. And in the context of the 1998 D-penny, the rumors predict the existence of a handful pressed on 1998 dime planchets, which are thinner, lighter, and narrower than cent blanks, transforming the coin into a bizarre hybrid that blends physical features of one denomination with the design of another, a mistake that escapes mint detection due to the unstoppable tempo of mass production. And while these wrong planchet cent strikes are exceedingly rare, their allure is intensified by their dramatic visual impact, because seeing Lincoln's portrait cramped into the smaller surface evokes the sense that something is fundamentally broken, that the machinery has failed in a dramatic way, and this imagination fuels obsession, collection, and vast speculation that rockets such coins into the hundreds of thousands, millions, or even in the realm of myth, hundreds of millions if the right buyer were to appear. Another fascinating aspect lies in die deterioration errors, where repeated striking slowly degrades the die, softening details like Lincoln's beard, thinning the lettering, and blurring the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. And these visual effects inspire astonishment when analyzed under magnification, because the worn die gives the coin an almost melting appearance, as though the features are dissolving into the copper-plated zinc base. And for certain collectors, this decay is not a flaw but an artistic echo of the coin's mass production history, a testament to the relentless pressure of industrial minting. And when combined with other mistakes, die deterioration can transform an already unusual piece into a captivating marvel that transcends normal market logic. Even the metallic composition of the 1998 D-cent can play a role in its mythic valuation, because although all official pennies since 1982 are copper-plated zinc, the rumor of transitional metal errors persists, in which a few coins are mistakenly struck on leftover 95% copper planchets from earlier decades. And if such a mistake occurred in 1998, the density, coloration, and conductivity would differ from standard cents, allowing careful collectors to detect abnormalities through weight measurements or sound resonance tests. And the possibility that a single example may exist unleashes speculative values that soar to unimaginable heights, because rarity combined with composition variation forms the perfect storm for collectors hungry for legends. Then there is the matter of mint marks and microscopic anomalies in the D-mint designation, as some coins display filled D errors caused by debris clogging the die cavity, creating a mint mark that appears swollen, smudged, or entirely obscured. And these tiny deviations ignite fascination because they reveal the chaotic conditions of mass minting, where even microscopic dust particles can have dramatic visual consequences. And when these subtle oddities overlap with double die features or wrong planchet anomalies, the coin becomes a dense magnum opus of mint mishaps that collectors describe in hushed tones, speculating about provenance and imagining vaults filled with rare coins that shape the destiny of auctions. The value of the 1998 D1 cent, as exaggerated through collector lore, grows from more than mere scarcity or error. It thrives in psychological territory where collectors and investors chase the dream of discovering the impossible, because seeing a number like 196 million creates shock, awe, and ambition. And while experienced numismatists may caution against taking such valuations literally, the myth of the 1998 D-penny continues to flourish because it taps into the human desire to uncover something hidden, to unearth a treasure from mundane surroundings, to believe that a single coin can transform life overnight. And this narrative fuels discussions, rumors, videos, forums, and late-night conversations among coin hunters who scour archives, eBay listings, and old jars of change in pursuit of their own personal miracle. The allure deepens when collectors consider how few high-grade specimens may exist, because pennies circulate aggressively, their soft copper plating scratches easily, and their tiny details erode quickly when exposed to the abrasion of wallets, counters, vending machines, and car cup holders. Thus a pristine 1998 D-error coin with sharp features, unblemished fields, and lustrous surfaces becomes an object of ferocious desire, and high-grade errors are often seen as flawless miracles spread across millions of ordinary coins, magnifying their appeal and prestige to levels that even seasoned auctioneers struggle to describe. The story also extends into speculation around private collectors, whispered tales of secretive acquisitions where wealthy individuals secure rare coins for undisclosed prices, and whether or not these legends are true, they shape community belief, encouraging enthusiasts to hold tightly to their discoveries, convinced that one day the right buyer will materialize and shower them with fortune. And because collecting culture thrives on hope, mystery, and imagination, the dream value of 196 million becomes more than just a number. It becomes an emotional anchor that persuades thousands of collectors to continue searching.